Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Search, Deploy, Commit. I'm here with Alex. Do you prefer to go by Alex or do you prefer Alexander?
Either one is fine. But
Okay,
yeah, Alex is fine.
all right, Alex, the extraordinaire of game hosting 200 player games. Obviously, a player yourself, but so thankful to have you here on this episode with us. Thank you for joining this show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, I like to start with where we all start in these kinds of you know interviews. But what I wanted to ask is, how did you find out about Warzone when you got started? Like, did you just find it on your own, or did somebody invite you?
Okay, that's a great question, and I watched your other podcast episode with Samick and listened to both of your stories. For me, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I was looking for a new strategy game to play because I got burnt out on Total War, Civilization, other games like
Sure.
that. I was just burnt out on all of them. They weren't proposing anything new. Like I already played a lot of chess. I was like, man, I need something that's just a bit different from those, and I just was digging around so much on the internet. I really had to put in a lot of effort to find this game,
Yeah.
but I did eventually because someone just listed it. Because I had played Risk as a kid, and so this game kind of appealed to me. But how I found it, I was just looking. I had to spend. It was really hard for me to find this game.
Sure.
Um, uh, but I was just looking for something new to play, and I found it, tried it, and I liked it. It was pretty, it's pretty easy to get into. Obviously, you make an account in like 15 seconds. I don't even think you have to verify your email, and you can just get started. And yeah, and I just liked it after that. And
That's awesome.
I ended up, I always get my ass kicked so many times, and so it would just piss me off. And I'm like, wow. But and I like the maps. The maps look really pretty. And then
Yeah.
as I've gotten more mature now, I'm not like a kid anymore. But it's kind of like I'm 25 by the way, so that's kind of why I say that. But it's kind of like it. I see how deep the strategy can go on in this game, and so it's really interesting. I like kind of like how this game almost has like a sandbox feel to it almost.
Yes.
So that's what I really like about it. And by the way, just my background, I when I was a kid, I was playing Halo Custom Edition and like Halo Combat Evolved on
Right
my
on.
a computer. So back then, Halo Custom Edition, there were so many, maps. The modding scene was
Yeah.
really active just with making maps too. That's where a lot of people would, because it was so easy to get the tools to make the maps. It's still very active. But not as active, but that's kind of the background that I come from, and so this game kind
Cool.
of reminds me of that in a sense, because it's really old, but people still play it.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of user-generated content. It's kind of got an indie feel, so that's what I like.
That's cool. And I mean, obviously, we're having you because I've been watching your videos. You're hosting a massive 200 player game, which I mean, and all the stuff that you do, all the extra things in this, it's this big story that you're creating. But how, before we jump into that big game that you're, still I think in the middle of, how did you get started game hosting? Like, was this something that you just started doing right away, or did you find yourself playing the game and then, like, how did you get started hosting games?
Well, you're asking really good questions. So what happened was I joined a 40-player game. It was kind of like a Diplo game, as they call them,
Yeah.
uh, and I ended up being labeled as a multi-accounter. Like because Warzone's so easy to make an account, and
Ah, sure.
you can have multiple tabs open with, so.
Yeah.
And I was accused of someone who was doing that, and I wasn't, by the way. And I was so pissed off, so I kind of made it a living hell for them a bit, but then I quit. And when I was like, screw you guys, like Eric Cartman, I'm gonna host my own and do better than you. That's kind of I have that attitude in life in general. Like I can do
Sure.
it better than you, and I'm gonna do it. And that's exactly what I did. I hosted a new 40-player game, and then from there I kind of saw something like, wait a minute, like because I just copy and pasted the settings from the game that they kind of kicked me out of, and
Sure.
I was like, whoa, these settings kind of huge potential here. Let me host a new game and let me upgrade the settings a bit, kind of based on what I think would be a better player experience. And then I was like, you know what, the 200 player games had just became available about a month earlier, so I was like, you know what, let's make it 200. Screw it, let's make this epic.
Wow.
And and then ever since then, it's been a huge learning experience, and we've improved it a lot. But that's kind of how I got into it. I never wanted to do it before. Before I always just played regular games, like either single player, just like with
Sure.
everybody else. Mostly real time games too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I never got into multi games that much because I just like to play this kind of like maybe while I'm working and I have like a 5 minute turn timer.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. And I think that's a big part of why everybody likes this game is you have, very short periods of time you can just quick jump in and fix something or, make a turn and move on with life, which I think is another bonus. But so when you obviously got into this 200 player game, how did your idea for this like massive game, I mean, and maybe just all of your games that you've hosted in general, how do you get your ideas for creating them? Because in a way, you're sort of creating that story.
yeah, so it kind of because I'm a lifelong gamer basically. I played my first game on like Nintendo 64 when I was like 6, and then Cartoon Network games. Like this was
Yeah,
like in early like probably 2004, so that's kind of when I got started 2003. So I come from that kind of thing, and it's honestly, I kind of look at it as kind of like, a lot of gamers, like people who really identify as a gamer, they always say, "Oh, I'd love to make a game. I can make a really good game." And so many players always critique game developers. Like if you play Elder Scrolls games, people are always saying how that could be better, or Call of Duty gamers always talking about
yeah,
the flaws, whatever. And you know what? Sometimes the players are totally wrong, and sometimes they're right. And in this case, I think I've been right a bit because my idea, it's really cool. Everybody that's playing it really likes it. And it's really been an experiment because it's never really been done before the way I'm doing it. It's almost like I consider myself like a product manager, a game master, um, with this 200 player game I'm hosting.
yeah,
And it's because it's never been done before in this game, and I just thought what would be really enjoyable because like typically Diplo games have a lot of role playing elements, which personally I'm not really a fan of that. And but also Diplo games, and it's like a lot of times with Diplo games, people just get bored because there's no wars. Like a lot of
sure.
people are just they take their turn and then they log out. They don't do anything. They just like deploy their armies or build some cities or whatever. They just submit for their turn so they don't get booted. And nothing happens. So I was like, how do we have fun Diplo games? Like, I know there's like, because like I told you, I mostly play real time with the games.
Yeah,
And like that's like on the road maps. Typically, like the road maps are the most popular, or the basic Earth map, or maybe the Scrabble game map. I'm sure you've seen all those.
oh yeah,
Um, and I was like, how do we get the strategy and like that high skill level, plus also like these other elements to make it a bit more like more in depth, like a deeper experience versus just like I don't know, because I've done all that other stuff already, and it's like I need something more, and I just saw that there's potential, and like the settings I came up with were, I think it's working so far. It's still an experiment, but it's working so far. God, it's just been amazing.
that's awesome. Yeah, and maybe, for those of us that haven't been in your 200 player games, could you give us a quick, synopsis of the things that you've implemented into your game as far as the rules that you have in place? Is there any planning that goes into that for you when I mean, there's got to be some planning for a 200 player game as far as what does that look like, all those things kind of.
Yeah, yeah, and I would consider this game. It started off as a 200 player Diplo, but what it really is a 200 player strategic team game. But the team slots, you're not locked into team slots. Like a lot of team games,
Oh, sure.
you can join. You choose what team slot you want to be on, like Team AA, Team BB, etc. This
Okay.
game's not like that. It kind of has like just 200 players, like FFA style. But then we enforce teams and like the rules, we started with this original framework that I came up with, like the original bare bones of it, like with the whole, like this alliance system, which is basically like teams, but you choose your ally after the game loads, not before the game loads. That's the kicker there. And and a few other kind of typical Diplo rules, like you have to wait one turn to attack.
Okay.
Um, but um, we started with that framework, but ever since it started, we've kind of been people have come up with ideas for that are better. I've come up with some, and it's still an experiment because this is the first one. Although we're gonna do another one, we're just kind of waiting for this one to end,
Sure.
or get close right to the end. It's I do talk to the players because I am a player and I'm also like the game host, the product manager. I look at myself as a product manager, because it's a
Okay.
product. I view it as a
Interesting.
product because I'm a businessman, so I view it as a product. Um, and I'd say it's been interesting. Some players definitely do complain about the rules changing since it started. That was a huge feud, like super huge. And it still kind of goes on now sometimes. Uh, and all the players are vocal. We created our own Discord and everything, so we all talk. And by the way, we couldn't even talk in the regular game chat because it would just crash.
Oh,
It takes like 2 minutes to load on a
to load
gaming
all the
PC.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
because there's like freaking like probably like a gigabyte worth of freaking text messages in there.
Yeah,
Um,
sure, sure.
but yeah, so we had to start using Discord because you can't even
Gotcha.
load the chat. And it's just better to use Discord now at this point. And I had never used Discord before, by the way. So overall, the rules, yeah, we have an alliance system, and then we have a few other things. But the alliance system basically means if your ally or you go to war, no, let's say you declare war, then your ally is also in effect declaring war. Or if your ally gets declared on, you also are in effect being declared on. So it's a true alliance system. And my settings in this whole game was kind of inspired by the Total War games, like the Crusader Kings games, a lot of
Okay.
Paradox games. So it was really inspired by that. Um, Plus those original settings that I copy and pasted. The original settings weren't that good, but they kind of I don't know, they were kind of generic. But we I kept the same map and that they were using. It's just a map of like basically a World War II map of Europe and North Africa. From Hearts of Iron 4, another Paradox game. Um, and I even came up with this idea to create like a council of players, and it was just like a popular vote of like the 10 most popular players. Basically it ended up being a popularity contest, but just a council kind of to help with things that are outside the rules.
Interesting.
And then I have other players create their own like analysis, like their own charts, and they share it. And then I have another player, he created a document to track everything because my original one sucked. He put it in like a
Yeah,
Google sheet, and it's
I
so
saw
good.
that.
And
That
he
was that
helps
was a
me
lot.
manage it. And it's really nice. So yeah, I got a lot of the players are helping me with it because there's so much to do,
There's a
a lot
lot.
of bookkeeping work. And it's been really interesting, but it's fun too. Like we, besides all that fancy stuff, like it's like the actual gameplay is really unique. You can't see this type of gameplay kind of unless you're in some sort of like clan war or something. I don't think you're gonna see gameplay like this
Sure.
necessarily. So it's really I try to combine like the best things from the Diplo games and the best things from like clan wars. Although I've never done clan wars before, I kind of have an idea. So it's kind of like they take it more seriously. And so that's kind of what's going on in this game. It's like it has strategy in it, but it's also got some of like those random, Diplo elements in it. Like it's not necessarily
Sure.
like a chess match. Like a chess match, you just want to beat your opponent. Like what I'm saying is there's kind of emotion involved. Everybody has their own story, their own angles that they're going for. Just kind of like say if you played like Crusader Kings 3 or 2, kind of like that. Kind of everybody's got a story and their own biases. So it's kind of interesting we get that. It's not like necessarily like a boring chess match, although it's cool to watch a chess match with two like grand masters. It's kind of
Yeah.
like this is kind of like almost like a bunch of different chess players all kind of vying for things. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's it's funny, you talk about how you see yourself as like a product manager, and maybe that you shy away from role-playing games, but in some ways you're definitely taking on, a story, which I think is really cool. And I know we're, always looking at stories in this game and what's going on, and I think this is really interesting, what you're doing, and hope that can continue. Obviously would love to be a part of the next one or whatever you end up doing, obviously, but and I'm sure others would as well. Is there any tips, maybe people that want to get started as new, hosts, if they want to host their own game? Is there like maybe one surefire tip that you would like if you're going to host a game, you want to do this? Like what would that be in your perspective? Maybe somebody that wants to host another 200 player game. something big like that, what would you recommend if you could just do one tip?
That's a great question. And the one thing I've learned as kind of like a game host, is that as a host, I have two tips. One, make sure that you have all your rules and everything, the settings and everything. Make sure you make it really clear and easy to understand and have it all properly defined before you start. Because the number one thing that happens, a lot of people join games without reading the settings. So they might not realize that like you're using local deployment or like you changed like the kill ratio for armies. Like some people play 2080 games, but some people change it up. Some people add luck. So make sure you really spell that out for players because a lot of these people don't read. They're on their phones. And then make sure if you have like any extra rules or something that you have those clearly stated so people know, in like one or two sentences because that's super important. And then and I say that because um and the third thing I guess fine I have three things. Um make sure like understand that when you're like the host, it's a bit different just from being a regular player. So you're also the host. So it is a bit different, and you kind of have to learn how to separate the two personalities, so that no one accuses you of whatever. Especially in kind of like the game that I'm hosting. Like this is not just like an random FFA game that anyone can host. This is really complex and intricate. Um, and it requires a lot of effort. So just try to realize if you want to do something like I'm doing, where you have 200 players and it's got a lot of like elements in it that you won't. It's almost like a mod for this game. Um, just make sure that you be a good host. Um, yeah, because it's different from just being a player. It's got responsibility, and you gotta make sure you understand that responsibility so that you're not only that everybody has a good time, but just like so that no one gets confused, no one gets mad at you, and you develop a good reputation as a good host.
Right, right. Be prepared for what those challenges are going to be if you're going to have and take on, a big game like this. I think that's a really good tip. Even just in the
Mhm.
couple short games that I've hosted, even uh, as a player, I should have looked into how long you've been playing, but this is kind of the moment where you get a chance to sort of share what would you like to see improved in the game, maybe changed in the community, or maybe even settings, whatever the case is. Is there anything you would like to share or see changed in Warzone?
Well, I would like to see some sort of mod making tool that players can easily use to make their own mods without having to understand like coding language and stuff like that. So some sort of mod builder and maybe also a map making tool that's really easy to just play around with. That would really help this game exponentially. Kind of like you've seen like Minecraft, Roblox, that
Sure.
type of stuff. So yeah.
No, that's I think a good suggestion. I think we're always looking for ways to improve and sort of to finish all of this up and thank you again so much for being on here. But what is it about this game that keeps you coming back and playing it and maybe wanting to spend more time in it or invite people to the game? What is that thing for you?
For me, it's just the strategy. So I'm just gonna plug myself away. We're near the end of the video, not quite at the end yet, but
Yeah,
because in my daily life, what I do is marketing strategy. Um, and I wanted to be a kid. As a kid, I always wanted to get into the military, and I couldn't. I ended up dropping out of high school and everything. And I went to jail, and there was no way they would, let me in after I got out of jail. And I was like, oh, want. So I ended up, I wanted to do strategy in the military. I thought I'd be a general or an officer, but that was not going to happen. And I ended up getting into marketing. And it's funny because now I do marketing strategy every day. And it's just what I do because I can't do the military strategy that I truly wanted to do. And this game is kind of like an outlet for me, like to kind of do the military strategy, I guess. It's really weird, but it's kind of like the closest I can get to it. Because I'm really good at strategy, by the way. I'm not trying to like totally promote that right now, but I really am in
no,
my
it's okay.
with marketing, and it's like in this game I get to do it too, and it's kind of I just like to kind of it's kind of like an outlet for me. Kind of it's like the closest I can get. Kind of like almost like a form of escapism, but not quite. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's kind of like I am role playing because it's
sure.
basically this game offers like strategy that you really can't do this in real life, obviously.
Yeah,
So and yeah, so that's why I like what I like.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think Warzone offers, something for everybody. As long as you have some kind of strategy mindset, I think there's something for you here. And even for creators like yourself. So thank you for being a part of, the Warzone community and what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to share as far as what you're doing in the game or even outside of the game?
Yes, you know what? I would like, so like I mentioned, I do marketing, and I love for Fizzer, and I don't know if he's just a one-man development team or like he has I guess there's an actual company for this game. I did, by the way, become a paying member because I want to support the game
That's
after all
awesome.
these years that I played it. Um, and I'd love for this, Fizzer to become one of my clients. I specialize in helping companies scale, and I do know with games it's a bit different. But I would love for this company, Fizzer, Warzone, to become my client. That's what I'd really love to do, combine my passions together. Because I love to create, love marketing, love strategy, love this game. So that's what I'd like. Love to get Fizzer as a client. So Fizzer, if you're watching this or you're going to be on the podcast later, make sure you become my client.
That's awesome. And is there a website or a place that people can reach you for that stuff?
Yes, you can go to yourscalesource.com, like your scale source, just like and scale is in weight scale,
Oh, yeah,
your
sure.
and then yeah, yourscalesource.com. That's it, and you'll see me, get to learn about everything I do. I specialize in helping companies scale, direct marketing, very very good at that, and I charge top dollar by the way. And I am looking to get a client from this game for all of you watching. I haven't gotten one yet. I am looking to though. So if you have a business or you're planning on starting one, I can help you. Although I usually work with people who are already making lots of money, like this game, for example, Fizzer. But if you're still looking to get started, I can help you. I'm really good at that. I am very good. I want to stress that I'm very good.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you again for being on the show. Thank you everybody for listening. Feel free to check out our other episodes. We're trying to stay consistent as far as updating YouTube content, and I will put links in the episode below for Alex and our show here as well. So thanks again. Take care, everybody. This is Jack signing off.